They pulled me off the IT track, then blamed me for the exact equipment I'd been holding together for free. So I stopped and let them see what broken actually looks like. By the time I quit, there was a notebook sitting in a drawer with my handwriting in it that ended up costing that company thousands of dollars. I didn't plan it that way. I just wrote down everything I knew, walked out the door, and let them figure out the rest without me. But to understand why a notebook could do that kind of damage, you have to go back to how I ended up being the only thing holding that place together in the first place. I want to know something before I get into it. Have you ever been punished for being good at your job? Not fired for messing up. Punished for doing too much, too well, for too long, until someone decided that made you the problem. Because that's exactly what happened to me. Stick with me, because this one gets satisfying. So let me back up. I got into gas station management sort of by accident. I wasn't one of those people who dreamed of running a convenience store. I actually had my eye on IT. I liked fixing things, I liked systems, and back when I first started at this company, I was on a track toward exactly that. Working my way into the actual IT department. I was doing side work already, repairing computers for people, occasionally building whole machines from parts for people who ordered them, messing around with Linux stuff in my spare time, because I genuinely enjoyed it. I wasn't some tech genius wizard, don't get me wrong, but I wasn't a beginner either. I was somewhere solidly in the middle. The kind of guy who could actually diagnose a real problem instead of just restarting something and hoping. Then the company I worked for got bought out. And when a bigger company swallows a smaller one, priorities shift. Suddenly, I wasn't the guy being groomed for IT anymore. I was the guy who's good with people and numbers, and they needed someone exactly like that at a store that was bleeding money. I'd already proven myself once. There was a location that had no manager at all for a while, and I stepped in and turned it around, while a district manager handled the money side. So when this new store, the one that would become my store, kept sliding into the red, they came to me with a pitch. New promotion, more responsibility. They talked about it like they were handing me a gift. I took it. I didn't love it, but I took it. And that decision is basically the root of everything that happened after. The store itself wasn't in terrible shape structurally. It just had bad numbers and old equipment. And when I say old, I don't mean ancient. I mean the kind of aging but still limping along that you find in a lot of these places. The office computer needed defragging more than once. The card readers dropped out constantly. The server had what I can only describe as moods. Some days it just refused to cooperate, no clear reason, just a system telling you not today. Registers would throw errors out of nowhere because some update broke something upstream. The gas pumps themselves had BIOS errors sometimes. And running all of it, sitting at the center of this whole aging web like some overworked brain, was a piece of equipment we all just called the commander. If the commander had a bad day, the entire store had a bad day. For the first stretch, I was just trying to keep the numbers up. Paperwork, safe counts, scheduling, the usual grind. Some weeks we were in the black, some weeks we weren't. And it took a couple of years of grinding before I finally had it steady. But the whole time, this equipment kept fighting me. Here's the thing about corporate IT support in a setup like that. You put in a ticket, and then you wait. There were 2 IT guys covering 30 stores. 2. For 30 locations, all with their own aging equipment, all breaking down at their own pace. If you put in a ticket, it might be days before someone even looked at it. It might be weeks before someone showed up in person. And every day that a card reader was down, every hour that pumps couldn't take cards, that was money walking out the door, or more accurately, money never walking in at all. So I stopped waiting. Server acting up? I'd dig in and fix it myself. Office computer freezing? I'd handle it. Registers throwing errors? Same thing. Even the soda machine, if it decided to stop working, I'd figure out why. The card readers were the most common headache of all. Most of the time, a simple reset would bring them back, but I learned the hard way that you couldn't just swap one out and expect it to work. I actually tried that once, thinking a bad reader was the problem, and it turned out the real issue was that the register itself had stopped talking to it. Little discoveries like that piled up over time. I never cracked anything open, never did actual hardware surgery. Everything I did was more like triage, keeping the patient alive, not performing surgery, and it worked. It kept the store running. Nobody above me seemed to mind, because from where they sat the numbers were good and the tickets were low. Win-win, as far as corporate could tell. Then one day I got pulled away to train a new manager at a different store that had just come under our company through another buyout. My district manager took over, watching my location while I was gone. I actually didn't mind the trip. 70 plus hours a week staring at the same four walls gets old fast. So a change of scenery, even for work, felt like a small vacation. While I was there, my phone started blowing up. Card readers down. Registers down. Pumps refusing card transactions. All at the new store, all at once. I didn't even need to see it in person to know what was happening. "Is it the commander?" I asked the guy on the other end of the line. "How did you know that?" Because when all three of those things go down together, it's never three separate problems. It's always the one thing controlling all of them. I walked him through resetting it over the phone. A few minutes later, everything was back online. Simple as that. It felt good, honestly, using the exact kind of knowledge I used to want to build a whole career around. 2 weeks after that, I got an email from the head of IT and maintenance, and this is where the story actually turns. The email was polite on the surface, but the message underneath it was clear. From now on, if anything broke, I needed to submit a proper ticket and wait for an official technician instead of touching it myself. I wrote back and told them straight. If I stop fixing things myself and wait on their turnaround time, the store is going to start losing money, plain and simple. That wasn't a threat, it was just math. Their response is the part I still think about. You don't understand how complex these systems are. Any fix you attempt could end up damaging them further. I read that line probably 4 times. I don't understand the systems. Me. The guy who had spent months, years really, nursing this exact aging equipment back to life over and over, who had begged for updated hardware more than once, who had personally kept every register and pump and card reader limping along through sheer stubbornness. That one stung more than I expected it to. Not because I was afraid of losing status, because it was just factually, laughably wrong, and they were saying it with total confidence, like they had any idea what actually happened in that store on a daily basis. So I told them fine, I would comply. And I meant it, fully to the letter. From that point on, every single time something broke, I filed the form exactly like I was told. Card reader down, form to IT. Register throwing errors, form to IT. Soda machine acting up, form to maintenance. No shortcuts, no unofficial fixes, no more resets done off the books. I did exactly what they demanded and nothing more. The tickets started piling up almost immediately. By the time a technician actually made it out to my store, they weren't fixing one problem anymore. They were fixing 3, 4, sometimes 5 at once, because everything had been sitting broken for however many days it took someone to show up. My district manager noticed almost right away. "Why did you stop just fixing these yourself?" she asked me one day, clearly frustrated watching the tickets stack up. I told her exactly why. I showed her the email, I explained the whole thing. She was furious, genuinely furious on my behalf, but here's the catch. She couldn't actually order me to go back to fixing things unofficially because the person who told me to stop was above her in the chain of command. Different department entirely. Her hands were tied just as much as mine were, so the equipment kept failing. Card readers stayed down for days at a time instead of minutes. Registers sat broken until an official ticket worked its way through the queue. Sales, predictably, started slipping. And I just let it happen because I was doing exactly precisely what I had been told to do. About 4 months into this, corporate held one of their manager meetings, the kind where they sit you down, tell you your numbers, and let you know whether you're getting a raise or a lecture. I got the lecture. They told me my performance had been bad, that I had let the store slide into a bad state, that there were, quote, key points I needed to fix about how I was running things. I stopped them right there. Here's something you need to know about me. I document everything, obsessively. Every error, every incident, every email, every date and time something broke and how long it took to get fixed. I came into that meeting prepared, because deep down I think I already knew this exact conversation was coming. I laid it all out on the table. I showed them the direct correlation between me personally fixing equipment and the store's sales climbing steadily for 2 straight years. I showed them my own notes tracking every single time a piece of equipment went down after I stopped touching things. I explained why my paperwork had started coming in late, because I was literally waiting for a frozen system to give me 5 working minutes just to email a form off. And then I pulled out the email, the one telling me to stop fixing things and start filing forms instead. I said it right in front of them. "You can't give me a bad review," I said, for doing exactly what I was told to do. The room got quiet for a second, and that's when my district manager spoke up, and dropped something I hadn't fully known myself. She explained that I had originally been on track to move into the company's actual IT department before the buyout happened. But once the new, much larger parent company took over, they brought their own IT infrastructure with them, and I got quietly dropped from that track. Not because of anything I did, just because the company above us now had bigger plans that didn't happen to include me, and nobody had bothered to actually tell me that outright. So there it was. The full picture. I hadn't just been overlooked. I'd been erased from a path I didn't even know I was still supposed to be on, and then blamed for the fallout of a policy that policymakers themselves had forced onto me. After that meeting, there were apparently a lot more conversations happening above my head. They had to go back and re-examine my review. They had to explain why I'd been pulled from the IT track in the first place. They had to address the whole mess with the ongoing buyout and what it meant for staffing. I wasn't in most of those meetings, but I heard enough secondhand to know it wasn't a quiet, easy conversation. But here's the thing. Nobody in those meetings was thinking about. My body had been quietly falling apart the entire time this was happening. 70-plus hour weeks, standing for nearly all of it, on a bad back and worse knees, isn't something you just power through forever. I've been pushing it for a long time, and then one day, at work, it caught up with me. I blacked out on the floor of that store. That was it for me. I couldn't keep standing that long anymore. I put in my 2 weeks. But before I left, I did one more thing. I sat down with a notebook, an actual physical notebook, not a document on a computer, because I genuinely didn't trust that they wouldn't dig through anything I left digitally. And I wrote down everything, every error code I'd ever seen, what each one usually meant, what situations looked like when specific pieces of equipment were about to fail, how I fixed each recurring issue, step by step. It wasn't just notes. It was basically a survival manual for that store's aging infrastructure, built from 2 years of hands-on trial and error that nobody else at that company had ever bothered to accumulate. I finished my 2 weeks and left the notebook behind in a drawer, where I knew someone would eventually find it. A few days after I was gone, I actually got a phone call asking where the notebook was. I told them exactly where to look. They found it, they used it, and from what I heard, things went smoothly enough after that. Here's where it gets a little sweeter, though. Once the new parent company's people actually made their way into that store and saw firsthand how things had been running, how much of the place had been held together with duct tape, hope, and one manager's unofficial repairs, word got back to me that the new owner wasn't happy. Not with me. With the situation. He apparently said something along the lines of talent that gets built through actually working in the trenches is valuable, and that it had been thrown away carelessly. Not long after that, they ended up replacing a big chunk of the aging equipment entirely. New card readers, new registers, upgraded systems across the board. I heard secondhand that it cost them thousands of dollars to do it. Not a catastrophic business-ending amount, but enough that somebody up the chain definitely felt it. These days, I work from home. I still build Linux tools in my spare time. I've released some of them publicly, I've picked up writing, and I've even done some work with content creators. I don't make anywhere close to what I made running that store, but I sleep fine. Nobody calls me at midnight because a card reader decided to give up. I don't spend my days quietly wrestling a system that seems to actively resent me. I think about that email sometimes. You don't understand how complex these systems are. I understood them just fine. I understood them better than anyone who ever wrote me a form to fill out. What I didn't understand, not really, not until it happened to me, was how easily a company will let something break just to prove a point that was never true to begin with. So I'll leave you with this. If you'd been in my position, watching everything fall apart because someone above you refused to admit you knew more than they did, would you have kept fixing it anyway, or would you have done exactly what I did and let them find out the hard way? I want to hear it. Tell me what you would have done.